Bienvenidos. We are in the Spanish radio room at Kyle Field after a dejecting performance, to say the least.
I could tell you were cycling through like 7 different words in your head, and that was the one that came out. That's a good one.
That was the most camera-friendly word that came to mind after about a few that weren't cycled through. Dejecting performance, as I look at the scoreboard here at Kyle Field, 41-10 from the rampant Texas A&M Aggies over the lowly Missouri Tigers after a game that was really defined by the first half and just really can be defined by a slow start finally getting to this team and biting them. Quentin, I wanted to ask you, firstly, with you obviously wrote the game, or you got a chance to really analyze the game live and just see what was going into what went wrong. You talked about how huge the battle of the trenches was. How would you assess the Tigers' performance?
Well, yeah, it wasn't just the trenches. I mean, we could sit here for 45 plus minutes because every facet of the game Texas A&M won. I have a very hard time finding even a very small part of the game where Mizzou was better than Texas A&M today. If you want to talk about the trenches, I think that's a pretty good place to start. That was what I had written about in depth leading up to this game, and Texas A&M housed Mizzou from start to finish. The defensive line, that was the best defensive line by far Mizzou had played through these first now 5 games. And Nick Scorton, 2.5 tackles for loss, a sack and a half. The interior was dominant. They were generating a lot of pushback on Mizzou's offensive line that got called for a couple of penalties, namely the ineligible man down the field that wiped away a 75-yard touchdown throw to Luther Burden earlier in the game. That was a real momentum swing. And then on the other side of the ball, Connor Weigman looked comfortable all afternoon. He was not the expected starter, at least in Mizzou's eyes, leading up to this game, even though Mike Elko said on Monday that Connor Weigman was going to be a game-time decision. Weigman looked super duper comfortable, 18 of 22 passing for 276 yards and a few big-time scrambles. Gap integrity for Mizzou's defensive line was really, really poor. Weigman and Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels had wide open running lanes. It was kind of reminiscent of what Mizzou had been experiencing over the first 4 games. Their rushing attack, I mean, it was rendered almost almost useless at a certain point when Mizzou was down enough early on, but they weren't able to generate much on the ground. And then obviously, again, the game scripts really flipped in the direction of they had to pass. And so it was an avalanche of things. I don't think any one thing was the deciding factor because, once again, it was a lot that went wrong for Mizzou today here at College Station.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I think one thing that was really telling was how adamant that Drinkwitz was in the Tuesday presser that Marcel Reed was going to play. They're never going to admit something like that after a game like this, that, they might have had their eyes too much on one quarterback and not the other. But it really did seem like it, the way he was talking, that, no, as far as I'm concerned, that's their quarterback. He's 3-0. That's their quarterback. That's what we're preparing for. We're prepared. They've modeled the offense around him. It really felt like they weren't preparing for what Weigman brought to this offense. And it showed. 18 to 22, 276 yards. I mean, he threw 3 passes in the entirety of the second half. And when your quarterback only has to throw 3 passes in the second half because of how good it went in the first half, it's a pretty good day at the office. And to your mention about gap integrity, I think a lot of that can be chalked up to they were so desperate to get pressure on the quarterback that the psyche was just gone. The haphazardness prevails in that kind of situation because you're just thinking so much about, we got to get in the backfield. They got to get back there. Johnny Walker Jr. talked about this week how important it is to get back there. And I feel like that importance was placed too much when you go down in the game and you lose things like that and you go too hard on it in that sense. And to speak about penalties, bringing plays back, there's going to be Mizzou fans out there that talk about the momentum or how it's a big deal that they didn't get a 4th and 2 at the start of the game, or how it's a big deal that a touchdown was called back, or it's a big deal that there was a late pass interference call in the first drive for Texas A&M. But really, to me, it's not a big deal, because the big deal really is how dejected those penalties made Mizzou feel. And that's a testament to coaching, that's a testament to mindset, that's a testament to a lot of things about this team, and it's not a good thing. They clearly let those things bring them down. They clearly let the scoreboard affect them. You could see a lot of the time their players looking up and looking at the scoreboard. They may not, and again, a football team is not going to be very keen to admit those kind of things after a loss like this, but it was just a fact that those things, including the crowd, played a huge factor into the psyche of this team. They talked about third down execution being a huge, huge factor going into this game, and my goodness was it, because they didn't do it very well. There was a point in this game where Mizzou was 0 for 6 on third down, and A&M was 7 for 9. And A&M was very good at even producing plays on first and second down, to the point where the third down conversion rate really wasn't that big of a factor. You could look at the third down conversion rate and say, oh, they had a very good third down conversion rate. But the fact of the matter is they got chunk plays on first and second down, and Mizzou flat out did not. They were put in third and long situations all the time. To that aspect, Quentin, I'll follow up with asking you, how bad does this look for this team? What can they do forward to regroup from this? And what can they learn from a game like this? Because there's a lot.
Yeah, not the best look, especially because they were thought of as a college football playoff contender.
Yeah.
They're ranked in the top 12 preseason, and I understand that they were underdogs entering today, and they have not, even leading up to today, before this game, had not been playing like the not best team in the country.
No.
I think that ranking was a lot of preseason expectations still hanging around. In terms of how they can bounce back, Christian Williams, Theo Weiss, and Eli Drinkwitz said very similar things in the presser. Move on. Don't dwell. Don't live in the past. They offered that as an option. Drink said the team has one or two options. They can dwell on the past, they can sulk, they can let their sorrows bog them down, or they can learn and they can move on. I think losses like these test leadership. I think a big reason why Mizzou experienced so much success last season is because when they got down, they were able to bring themselves back up. And that was because of guys like Darius Robinson. That was because of guys like Cody Schrader. That was because of guys like Chris Abrams-Drain, Ennis Rakestraw, Jalen Carlisle, who were clearly able to uplift their team, especially out of the mud in games like Kentucky, in games like Florida, in games like Kansas State, where Mizzou got punched in the mouth a handful of times, but they were able to rebound. Leadership is tested in games like these. Next week against UMass, I don't know if that'll count as a true rebound opportunity. Now, look, if they go out and dominate something like 65-7, great. That'll be good, because they would have taken care of business. But in the games following, Auburn, Oklahoma, Alabama, I think that's where that mental fortitude is really going to be tested. And so I'm curious to see how they bounce back. If they bounce back, they've shown they can do it before under this head coach and with a lot of these players as recently as less than a year ago. And so now is an opportunity. They said the season starts today. Now, while that mentality might sound corny to some, it's worked in the past, because again, that's having a 1-0 mindset. That's being able to learn from stuff that happened in the past that didn't necessarily go your way and apply it to future contests.
Yeah, and I want to talk about mentality. One play that I thought really reflected how dejected this team was there was a late hit on Brady Cook after a false start call. 2 straight false starts. Crowd was going crazy. I think it was 31-7 at this point. Mizzou was looking to, maybe claw back in the game a little bit, or at least have a moral victory of sorts in the second half. And Brady Cook was shoved after the play, and there was not one single player that, and this was pointed out by a former Missourian writer, Wendell Shepard, not one single player came and stood up for their quarterback in that moment. And that is kind of just a situation where, and maybe in a game, a close game, or maybe in a game where Mizzou's in the lead, you might see players coming in and backing their guy. And this team's mentality is going to be tested. You talked about leadership. I even wanted to bring up those guys after losses, because the team, not only did they bounce back within games, they bounced back after losses. They bounced back hard after the LSU game. They said that they were going to go in and win every game after this, after they lost to Georgia, and they did exactly that. So can they bounce back? Because this is a loss that really ranks highly up there for Mizzou fans, considering the expectations going into this game. And it being the first true road test. What I can take away from this game is, you know, we talk about UMass coming forward next. Do I think that's the best way to bounce back? No, but it's what they have at their disposal. You would maybe like to see this team go up against an SEC opponent and prove that they can actually be the team that they are against them. Because realistically speaking, will a team think that they have it back after a big win, even a huge win against a team like UMass? Probably not. They really are, but they have to make sure to not look forward to a game like Auburn, because that's also what, you know, maybe can get you in a situation like this, looking forward. Yeah, and usually we have a portion of these where we talk about the positives and negatives. For those who came here for the positives, I hate to break it to you, we don't really have many. The positive was they had a 27-yard pass in the first play of the game.
Oh, hey, the touchdown to Theo Weiss was good, but
there was a holding on that play.
Even so, yeah, there was a missed holding, and it cut the lead from 34 to 28.
Chris Paul.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, there's not much else that I have to say after a game like that. You all watched it most likely and got to see it. But the length that you watched it, I'm sure differed from, and I don't think the range ends with the whole game. I doubt it. Field goal attempt, didn't get to see it. We were already on our way down to the pressing room. Field goal attempt with 20 seconds left on the 1 yard line. There were some people that probably cared about that, over-unders and whatnot. I don't know.
If you had an alternate Mizzou plus 32.5.
Huge.
Big
if true.
Very big.
So with that, for me and Quentin Corpio, is there anything else you want to say about this game?
I think the greatest positive from today, for Mizzou's sake, is if they use it to propel themselves to a 10-win season. People had this game as a loss. I tabbed this game as a loss before the season. I stuck with it before the week. Obviously, I think very little, if anyone, expected it to be 41-10.
Yeah.
And gut check games happen all the time, even to really good teams. We've seen it a lot in college football already this year, and it's only week 5. I mean, Vanderbilt was just up 13-0 on Alabama, who experienced a roller coaster of all roller coasters the week prior against Georgia.
Yeah.
So especially this season, those kinds of games have been happening a lot. It's just a question of whether they respond or not. That is going to define the rest of the season.
Seriously, it's all about the response. And with that, I've been Adeen Rao, and this is
and we will continue to be Adeen Rao and Quentin Corpio. That is not stopping today.
That's not going away, and we're not going to let this loss, prevent us from watching this Tiger team everywhere in the country.
Mostly because it is our job.
Yes, that too. But we will be here no matter what. Quote,
except next week in UMass. We will not be there.
We will not be in Amherst.
Everywhere else
we're going to be. But with that, adios from the Spanish radio room at Kyle Field, and thank you guys, as always, for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.